Yeah, I think so.
Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one podcast on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know what we do here. We bring you nothing but the best. We are here to serve you in any way, shape, form, or fashion in which we can. The show was started with the kind of the premise of making sure people who are going through certain things, just make sure make sure you understand that you're not going through it alone. And I bring that up because if for you regular listeners, you guys know how much I write. All right. And this isn't Chat GPT. This is me actually sitting down, writing articles. This is how I kind of really got into the thought leadership world, is being a prolific writer. And it's something I still do to this day. Today I have a Jon Clemence who right up my alley, man, when it comes to, making blogs and creating written material and understanding and re-emphasizing the importance of written material. So we're going to dive deep into all that today. Jon Clemence, welcome to the show, man.
Man, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and I'm glad I have you on because I'm one of those people that still very much does believe in the importance of writing. I teach now at a school where we're monitoring literacy rates, and we're monitoring their ability to write and just being able to express yourself through the written word, and how that leads to your ability to be a great public speaker, to be a dynamic person in terms of your communication. So you have expressed that you've been doing this since you were young. Like, this is what you were all about. If it was feasible, you'll probably do it for free, right? But obviously that's not feasible. But it only became a recent time in which you were able to actually get paid to help proofread things, and you have to work your way up from the bottom. So I'd love for you to kind of just go back to your background a little bit. Go back to when you were probably, I guess, high school, when it became like turning in papers and stuff like that. What was those years like for you as you developed as a writer? And then we'll kind of go from there, man.
Yeah, so I was definitely okay. So I was a nerd. I still am a nerd. I wear it proudly. I should probably get a shirt that says professional nerd because I'm just gonna own it, Like that's what I am.
I'm happy you said that. I am happy you said, because there's no, and again, I teach, so I'm around these kids all day, and I see how the negative connotation that comes with that word. Ain't nothing wrong with being a nerd. That means you're gonna be successful. I believe it was Bill Gates who once said, "Be nice to nerds. Chances are you'll end up working for one."
There
So
you go. Yeah. So
we'll
yeah,
drop it like that.
100%.
Right.
So so yeah, I was the kid who growing up like in English class, I
Hmm.
was excited to read Shakespeare. I was like, can we do this more? Right? All the other kids are like, what are you crazy? This is weird. I don't understand. No, I thought it was amazing.
Right.
I was also the kid who and this actually extended into college. I even went to seminary and it extended there too. Like
Mhm.
I was the guy who was like, hey, let me proofread your paper. I'll just do it for fun because I like it, because I want
Mhm.
to read your paper and find all the mistakes. So like you said before, like I would totally do the job for free
Mhm.
if I didn't have bills, but I do have bills. So,
Exactly.
that's not
We all
gonna
got.
happen, but yeah. So yeah, I was definitely like I've just been that kind of guy my whole life.
Mhm.
I try not to be pedantic. I'm not gonna like, correct your grammar mid conversation. That's just rude. I'm not gonna do that.
Mhm.
But if you need help, like with proofreading or editing or writing something, like I'm just the guy. I love doing it. I've always done it, and I've been very fortunate to be able to make a career out of it now. It wasn't always the case, but to be able to do this for a living is just amazing.
Mhm. So when it comes to it, and this is really for anybody that's listening now that may be a teacher and they may be responsible for teaching or recognizing a kid's passion for writing, because too often does it get looked at as a punishment. Too often do, even with the kids that I deal with now, they have gotten to a point where they feel like writing and reading is sort of a punishment, I guess, because it's not as exciting. Can you speak a little bit about maybe some of the teachers that you had that recognized your passion for it, what they did, and hopefully, I'm asking this to help anyone out there that's listening that may want to incorporate some of these tactics to show kids, hey, writing is not a punishment, reading is not a punishment. These are things that you're going to have to develop for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Well, that's a great question. So I'm kind of torn because
Mhm.
I understand. So like my kids, I have a kid in junior high and I have a kid in high school, right? And so they're learning how to write a proper paper, right? So
Mhm.
your paragraph is a thesis sentence,
Yep.
and then a supporting sentence, and
Details.
then an explanation. Like, God, it's so boring. I mean,
Thank
I
you.
know that you, I
Teachers,
know
you
you
guys hear
have.
that? Thank you. Yes, he's cringing. You're probably cringing as you're seeing it. Like,
I
oh,
know. It's like, I know that's the correct way to write a
right,
research paper. I have a master's degree. I understand that. I understand it's a skill you need to learn. I totally get it.
right.
But if I could tell anything to teachers, and I'm just a guy,
Hmm.
but that's not how the business world works. That's not how you write engaging content that someone actually wants to read. And we
Right.
can talk about some of the things that I suggest and like how I do it.
Yes.
But the more chances I think you could give to kids to write in a different way, to be
Hmm.
more creative. One thing I did, one thing I did when I was a kid, I still love Weird Al Yankovic.
Hmm.
Again, that's the whole nerd thing coming out. And so I actually wrote a ton of like parody songs just on my free time. I mean, they weren't great, but I had fun. But like that's writing, right? That's
Exactly.
being creative, and that helps me to be creative to this day. So I love it when teachers give you a more of a creative license to write just, poetry or I think my kids had to write parody songs in a couple of their classes. Like, what a great way to make it a little more fun than just teaching people to write to the test or write to the
Right.
paper.
Right. And that, I mean, speaking from experience on my end, as a football, as God has a football background, it was after I stopped playing that I realized that this is just a great form of therapy. Whether you're going through something on the field and people may not understand, just put it down, get it communicated, get it out there so you're able to move on. And even though we do live in a technology fueled world, when you're writing a text, there was one point where I had a situation with this girl that I really wanted to like absolutely blast. And I had this long text written, angry text. I woke up the next morning and said, okay, don't send that, calm it down, tone it
Doesn't
down. And
it?
all of it is, all of it is are the skills that you're talking about in terms of just getting your stuff down, getting it out there. You're able to communicate with yourself. So, I have to ask now, when you left college and you decided to, venture out into the corporate world, and you have, your own words said, look, it was miserable for you because you didn't have the creative outlet. Kind of speak to us a little bit about those years and, what was so gut wrenching, what was so terrible about being in that situation where you're obviously not happy.
Yeah. So I sort of fell into my corporate job. So I was in the corporate world for 15 years, and I worked in quality management, which is about as boring as it sounds. Um, and I
This
fell
is
into
out
the
of quality manager. What does that even mean?
So is it the funny? Okay, so I say it's important. It's actually crucial. It's really important. It's
Right.
basically like when you run a business, you need good processes. And I
Hmm.
still do that to this day in my own business.
Right.
That part's not boring, but it does limit creativity. There's not a lot of options to, write poetry or write a kick and blog post
Mhm.
when you're in quality management. For me, I kind of fell into the job, so it wasn't ever a passion of mine. It was a paycheck. And that's the first thing I learned is that yes, sometimes you have to do things for a paycheck, but
Mhm.
if you cannot make that your career, oh my gosh, do something else. Like I understand you got to work, to do whatever, but
Gotcha.
15 years of doing something simply because it paid money was that led to depression and frustration for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
And the fact that it didn't align with my skill set, right? I had no opportunities to write or to do creative things or to really just even run my own business the way I wanted to run it, which I found out is a core value for me. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think more than anything, yeah, not being able to be creative, not really being able to play to my strengths, and even more so, the companies I worked for, and I don't want to give names because one of them was a really big company, but
Mhm.
their values were way different than my values.
Right.
The big company I worked for, their value was how do we make as much money as humanly possible?
Right.
And man, I'm just not into that. Like I'm like, hey, money is cool. I love making money, but
Mhm.
not at the, you know,
You have to talk
not
about.
to the point where like you're sacrificing safety or employee morale or customer experience, right? So like those misalignments really, really, really works on me in a bad way too.
Yeah, I had those same feelings in college when I had initially started out wanting to be a business major, and then I sat in one class and you just talk about money for the whole hour. And it's like, look, I get you needed to survive, but do we have to talk about it in every single conversation? And that the thing is, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because as you spent those 15 years in the corporate world, did you feel like your skills were diminishing? Did you ever get to a point where it's like it's difficult for you to sit and write, and the skills that you're not using when you're having to do whatever it is you're doing for a paycheck, sometimes it can get diminished when you try to get back into it.
Yeah. I during those years, I did write a couple of blogs just for fun. So I
Mhm.
did work on my skill set. And I did have quite a bit of opportunity to do some public speaking and teaching. So
Right.
I felt like I was able to keep those skills sharp. But what the skill that I really did lose was when I transferred from a giant company to a very small company. I unfortunately I worked for a person who did not trust any of his employees.
Hmm.
And so the skill of being able to have confidence in myself atrophied. And let me tell you what, it took a long time to get that back.
Yeah, yeah, and that's a very solid point because primarily the people that do listen to the show are business owners of 20 or more employees, and one of the things that is a constant takeaway whenever, whether it's just me or a guest, is figuring out how to meet the employees to the where we don't create turnover, where we're doing stuff to avoid the amount of turnover. And what you just mentioned is very important for you listeners to take in because there could be very talented people that are working for you, but if you don't make them feel like they're heard, if you don't make them feel like that you care, if you don't just get to know them in a professional way. I mean, you don't got to go happy hour with them or anything, but you got to ask them these questions about what exactly are you hoping to get out of this job. What is your career going to be? What's your plan going to be? Don't just have people in there collecting a check because it's going to waste your time, it's going to waste the employee's time, it's just going to have a bad ending. And one of the things that I was listening to when it comes to you is when you have that mentality, unfortunate circumstances happen, and then everything has to kind of blow up because the good old the coronavirus hit, and you had to
Yep.
figure things out. Obviously, for you, it turned out to be. I mean, I don't want to cast any to where the coronavirus wasn't a good thing, but in terms of business, you were able to kind of bounce back on your feet and create something that you were doing now.
Yeah, and to me, yeah, Corona was obviously terrible. A lot of negative, oh, so many negative. But yeah,
Hmm.
it forced me out of my job. I got let go because of economic factors. It wasn't anything, it wasn't like I was a bad employee. They just literally couldn't pay me anymore. That's
Hmm.
what happened. Um, but what it did do that I'm very thankful for is it forced me to take a step that I was too afraid to take.
Hmm.
And what I've learned about that since then is that anytime I'm thinking about my business or personal growth or anything like that,
Hmm.
whatever that next step is that I'm afraid to take, that's an extremely strong signal that that's the exact step I need to take. And
Hmm.
so getting better at that and learning how to fail and then get up and keep going and not like blame yourself or think you're some horrible person,
Right.
like if anything, for me being an entrepreneur, those are the most critical skills that I possess to this day is my mindset. I can try something even if I'm scared of it, even if I fail, and I can still keep moving forward.
So, kind of walk us through how you were able to, I guess, because I was listening to you before, and you started on Upwork, but and this is might be kind of a selfish question for me because it was during that time that I wrote this book right here, and I used my PPP loan to pay an editor to go through line by line to make sure it was good, and then I discovered Fiverr, and then the latest book I have here. I found an editor on Fiverr to just proofread everything, and still, yeah, and I'm a stickler like you, so I might see a period, I might see some punctuation marks, and I'll lose it because I know I paid an editor. I mean, working with them has been great. And if I do find something, they're able to make it so they send it back really quickly. But as anybody that's maybe new listening in that wants to start a blog, that wants to get things done in the written format, talk to us about kind of what your journey was to make it so they trust you to be that person that's going to be the best client or best person to help them out.
Yeah, a couple things. I focus on a couple things in my business
Mhm.
that's helped me grow my reputation. Number one, I always make the deadline. Always. I mean, unless something catastrophic happens, like, I got sick for a week and had to reschedule, like those things happen and people know that.
Mhm. Mhm.
But, if we agree upon a deadline, you're getting it by the deadline because
Mhm.
that's my word on the line and my word is important to me. So
Yes.
that's one thing.
Yeah.
Another thing is just I have developed a process
Mhm.
to catch all the errors. Like I catch most of them because I have natural talent, but natural talent only gets you so far.
Mhm.
So what I've learned to do is I know how to go back through a text multiple times to catch those last tiny little errors that most people
Right.
miss.
Right.
And so that means you're getting on-time deliverables and you're getting high quality deliverables.
Right.
And that helps you to grow your reputation as a freelancer like I was. It helps you to raise your rates like I've been able to do. It
Yes.
helps you to, eventually grow into an agency like I'm doing and
Mhm.
get more people on board and train them up. So really, yeah, like focusing on the quality and the deliverability aspects has just that's my bread and butter, man. Just being the best and getting it done and having that trust. And I've had clients tell me the best thing about with me is they don't have to worry.
Yeah.
They can just send me the thing and they know they're going to get it back and they
Mhm.
know it's going to be perfect. And, like that's hard to come by.
Yeah, well, that's I'm glad you brought up the clients because that's what I was going to ask you is has there ever been a situation where you and the client get into a back and forth because they may want to have maybe let's say it's something as small as I want all caps for this because I want to emphasize this and then you tell them no, we're not doing all caps. Have you ever kind of had to get into a situation where you're giving the author that kind of leeway or is it kind of just dependent on each situation?
No, I look at it more as a partnership
Oh,
because
okay.
I'm not a, so there's like prescriptivists and descriptivists, right, as far as language goes,
Mhm.
and I'm a little bit more of a descriptivist. So I will tell you straight up, like if you're my client, look, we're gonna edit everything to the Chicago Manual of Style because that's the Bible for the English
I,
language, and we're just gonna do that. But if you have something that you want in a certain way,
Mhm.
great, we'll do that. So what I do is I just make a style guide for my clients if they don't have one, and
Mhm.
that's where we list all of those things. So I have one. This is really nitpicky, but again, speaking as a fellow nitpicker, right?
This is
I
what we
have
do.
one client who wants to spell the word e-commerce with no hyphen. Now,
Hmm.
if you look in the dictionary, there's a hyphen. If you look in Chicago Manual Style, there's a hyphen, but they
Right,
don't want a hyphen. And you know what my response is? Cool, great. We won't put a
right,
hyphen in there.
right.
So I added it to the style guide and that's just what
Yeah,
we edit to.
yeah,
So I don't really like, I don't want to be in a battle with someone. I want to work together.
right.
And there are certain situations where it's okay to break the rules. So
Hmm.
think about the Rolling Stones. Can you imagine if their song was called I Cannot Get Any Satisfaction?
Right.
That's not right. It's
Exactly.
wrong, right? I can't get no satisfaction is the right way to sing the song.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's why I had brought up the question because as creators, and that's who primarily you're going to be working with, the people that are actually writing, creators, we have a habit of really fooling ourselves and making it so we think that the reader is going to read it a certain way. But I'm glad you mentioned the fact that it is a partnership and it really boils down to anyone that is listening that does want to use writing as a way of getting in front of more clients is who is your client? Do you know specifically who you want to serve? Do you know specifically who exactly do you want reading your stuff every day? I mean, I have a coach who he writes an email every single day, and I read his blogs, and it's because he's a former athlete. Now he's in the business, and he's speaking to me as if we're in the locker room, as if as I'm reading this stuff, it's reminding me or putting me in a place where we're having a dialogue, and that's important when it comes to your writing as well. So when the thing that I heard you say on a previous show is that, and I'm really curious to hear what it is like how you're able to go about doing this because the video is everything nowadays, right? So if you're talking to a potential new client or a potential new business and you tell them, look, you're going to help proofread a blog or you're trying to convince them to create a blog, and they say, hey, look, all our marketing is done via video. We don't necessarily want to do this. Or if we do a blog, we're going to make sure it's free. How do you kind of challenge their thinking because of, again, writing, like I said at the beginning, writing is actually still the most important piece. It's still very essential.
Yeah, I'll give you a great example.
Mhm.
So, uh, if you have a blog with your business, that is going to increase your chances of ranking on Google by 434%. That's a recent statistic from 2023. So
Okay, well,
it's still
before
okay.
can you kind of explain because ranking on Google, like especially for me personally, technology is a little kind of gets a little intimidating. What's the importance of
Yeah.
what do you mean by ranking on Google?
I mean, being on the first couple pages, right?
When they
Like
search you,
actually,
okay.
when people type in questions, your page comes up. That's what I
Exactly.
mean.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to make sure not only myself, but listeners caught that as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, yeah. So having a blog is still very important if that's part of your marketing strategy to, get those views from Google or whatever search engine of your choice.
Right.
Um, so I like to think about it this way.
Hmm.
So when I was about, I don't know, 10 or 12 years old, my brother came home with a Rubik's Cube and a book called How to Solve a Rubik's Cube. Now, do you know how hard it is to solve a Rubik's Cube reading a book about it? It's almost impossible.
Right.
Like you
Well, yeah,
can't do
you're
it.
teaching me something right. I had no idea.
So fast forward about 30 years, and
Uh-huh.
my 10 or 12-year-old son brings home a Rubik's Cube, and we go check out a J Perm video on YouTube. And after about an hour, I can now solve a Rubik's Cube.
Hmm.
So that's a great example of where if your business model is teaching people to solve Rubik's cubes,
Hmm.
you probably want to be pretty video focused and video oriented because that's a
I got
video
They gotta
topic,
see it.
right?
See it. Okay, I got you. Right.
But I'll give you another example. So I recently bought a new guitar
Hmm.
and I watched a ton of videos to get a sense for how they feel and what they look like. But I
Right.
also read a ton of blogs because I want to know people's experience and I want to know the schematics of the guitar. What's the neck shape? What's the scale length? How does this compare to these other things? And so for me, it was a blend. And I think that's probably the right answer for most of us moving forward is a blend. So
Hmm.
say you do have a video that's performing really well.
Yeah.
There's no law against taking that transcript and turning it into a blog post to get even more readers, or to take that video idea and then write some blog posts like I go into a little bit more detail about some of the things you had to gloss over in a video format. So
Mhm.
again, I don't want to like pit those two things against each other. I
Right.
think there's a time and a place for a video, and there's a time and a place for a blog or a newsletter or a social post.
Right.
And so I think there's a lot of creative ways to use those things in tandem. So you
Mhm.
don't have to write twice the content. You just use the same content and you just have maybe different angles for each one. So like that's the conversations I like to have with people about that.
Yeah, and it is also a force multiplier. And what I've actually done with so every week, the way the show works is 5 days a week it's going to be a guest, and then the Saturday and Sundays it's actually a solo episode. And what I actually do is I take the solo episode that I'm going to talk about, whatever topic I'm going to talk about, and then I also write an article about it. So when I write the article, whether I write the article first or record the solo episode first, it's helping me do both. So you're getting the video and you're getting the written format to where I may have remembered to say something that I didn't write down in the article. If I write the article first, oh yeah, it's going to help me explain what it is I wanted to explain, whatever that topic was. So you can't just do one. It's important that you make sure both are out there. So now, if you were to look me up now, you're going to see a lot of articles being written. Okay, there's a lot of videos too. And you just never know what place somebody may be in to take in whatever content that you have. And you just mentioned it. All this stuff is being transcribed. It's going to be out there in a written format anyway. So now you're better off actually creating something for it to where it lasts and stands the test of time. So where if you have enough, now you can create a book out of it and do all sorts of things. You can never, ever, ever have too much content. That doesn't exist. If you're a business, you need to be putting it out there all the time to the point where you're it's coming out in your sleep. That's the world we live in, and you have to take advantage of these things. So, you had kind of mentioned this earlier, and I want to give you the opportunity to talk about it some more. What would you say is the next step to your business, the next phase? I know you mentioned maybe an agency and stuff like that. So I'll give you the time to kind of speak on that a little bit.
Yeah, so I started, as you mentioned, we talked about on Upwork. I was a freelancer, like literally $10 an hour. I think I was editing, like I don't know, like user reviews on a website. Like that's what I was
Here
doing,
we go, baby. That's it.
right?
Yeah.
But I had to start somewhere, so that's where we
Right. That's
started.
it.
I grew. I got I got better clients, better paying clients, and I got into blog posts, and I
Right.
eventually even got into writing. So now I do a lot of writing for businesses and editing as well. And I actually got to the point where I had to start saying no to people because I had like too much work. And I thought that's a bad business plan. Like that's not a great way to do things. I'm sorry,
Right.
I'm too busy. I can't take your money.
Mm-hmm.
So I
So the
reached out to some
systems
people.
and systems
Yeah,
and just to keep the systems, this is actually something I'm learning to myself when I'm building systems. Having that system that's in writing, it allows you to just follow a step-by-step system as well.
absolutely. And I definitely do that. I run my business with what's called a Kanban board. So if it doesn't make it as a task on my Kanban board, it doesn't happen. But if
Yeah,
it does, then it 100% gets done. So
100%.
that's
That's
my
awesome.
system.
1,000, 1,000.
So yeah, so then I reached out to some people who had similar skill sets that I did as far as like editing and writing goes,
Mhm.
but maybe they just weren't as far along in the journey as like reaching out to people. And that's, where I was. So I said, look, let's partner together. I will go out and get the clients, and then you can do the work, and I'll also help you with the work and make sure you're progressing in your own skill set. And so that's what we're working on right now. So really, like, what's the next step for me
Mhm.
is I'm just pounding the pavement because I want to work honestly with people like you
Mhm.
who value excellence,
Mhm.
who understand that, I wrote this piece of content, whether it's a book or a newsletter or whatever, but I also know that I can't edit my own work because I'm way too close to it. I
Yeah.
need that second set of eyes to come in and tell me
Mhm.
where I can make it better, find all the mistakes, make those suggestions,
Right.
maybe even write it for me if I just don't have the time to do that and I still want to produce content at a certain rate. So,
Right.
like, those are the people that I'm looking for, people like you, people like your listeners who
Mhm.
want to engage in that kind of a partnership.
Excellent. Excellent. And what is if anyone's listening out, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Yeah, super easy. You can go to my website, which is cedarpressproofreading.com, and you can just book a call. You can click a button right on there and we'll have a conversation just like I'm having with you. If you're on LinkedIn, you can find me there as well. You can connect with me you can search my name, Jon Clements, or you can search Cedar Press Proofreading. Either way, I'll come up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, like I said, just connect with me, reach out, book a call. We'll have a conversation. If I can help you, I will. If not, we'll part friends. Now, that's kind of better deal you have than that.
Yes, yes. And well, speaking of LinkedIn, the the element to the articles is something I use very frequently as well. I'm not sure if anyone listening knows that you can do that, but the LinkedIn articles is it's a valuable way of getting your written word out there as well. So, the way I close out all the shows, John, is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are on your way to this soul-sucking 9 to 5 that you had. I want you to pretend that that version of John has come into the Zoom room and is not able to express his creativity and all that. Pretend he is here. Give him some words of encouragement, and we will officially close.
Yeah. Oh man. Hey, former John, let me tell you something. You can do it, first of all.
Yes.
Take a step in faith, right? Even though you're afraid, I know you're afraid. I know you think it's going to fail. I know you have so much responsibility. Take a step anyway, man. It's going to be okay. Like, you know, your wife still loves you. Jesus still loves you. Your friends still love you. Man, go out and fail big. Figure it out. Like you can do it. It's so much better on the other side. I promise you.
I have absolutely nothing to add to that. That was heartfelt. That was to the point, and it's so incredibly true, man. Just go out and fail forward, fail big, and something major will happen for you. So, all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.